Zoom room where we have the chief of the Fire Suppression Bureau, Chief Ed Chaco, and the spokesperson for the Guam Fire Department, Kevin Riley. Good morning.
Did we get that right?
I hope so. Probably not. Did I? Go ahead.
Right now, Chris, we have Chief Chaco. Chief Chaco is the Northern Commander. He is also serving as infection control specialist and the field safety officer for this COVID response.
So we were way off, in other words.
Did we promote him?
Yeah. Hey, you're promoted, Chief. I mean, no, fire suppression kind of sounds like the place to be at, where it's like, okay, fire suppression, nothing COVID.
Infection control specialist. Right? That's what,
right. Yeah, so you're the guys with the hazmat.
Is that right?
So I oversee all our COVID responses, so all the protective wear, the eyewear, anything that deals with that.
Right, and I guess we'll just start there. Chief, if you could describe what GFD's role is in the COVID-19 response.
Everything.
Yeah, everything, I know. But
Yeah, so obviously GFD's role is always going to be to safely and effectively manage patients regardless of what's going on. My duty as an infection control officer and as field safety officer is one as the infection control officer. My job, my primary duty is to ensure that our guys that are boots on the ground get the most current information when dealing with policies, practices, and procedures relative to COVID. And as a field safety officer, my primary duty there is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all our personnel.
I gotta ask, with the rising number of cases, I could only, I guess, assume that would mean a rising number of transports, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So how is this? I guess how are you guys managing with that?
So,
Because I remember when we talked to Chief Stone, he was mentioning how every time you guys transfer somebody, then you have to like decontaminate the medic, and there's a downtime for that. And then there was also I want to say like a COVID transport unit that was established at Estumbo. Is that still the case, or have you guys had to open more like COVID units?
So we still currently have 2 COVID units, and they have been instrumental in handling the rise in our COVID cases. We've additionally stood up a decon team, which I'm sure you're aware of. And so that decon team helps expedite our medics to get back in service. Our decon team's primary role is is when the ambulances go to their destination, they disinfect the ambulance, they clean the ambulance, and they put it back into service. The other personnel on that decon team, they facilitate the doffing or the removal of the PPEs so that our guys can remain safe and return to duty in an expeditious manner. So just so you understand our numbers, to date, we've handled over 1,300 PUIs, surveillance cases, and COVID positive cases. Our 2 COVID units accounted for 467 of those responses, which amounts to around 35% of the response. So, as you can see, the vast majority of our responses is still being performed by our engine companies and non-COVID designated medics. But 35% of the today is a optimum number, given the fact that for COVID, the response, the goal was 1, to reduce exposure to our personnel. Number 2, to minimize contamination to the ambulances. Number 3, to free up our ambulances for our normal day-to-day operations. So we feel that reducing exposure 35% of the time for our personnel is a good number. We feel that 35% of minimizing contamination in the ambulance is a good number. And but the biggest impact of the COVID unit has been the transfer of confirmed COVID positive patients. The
Chief,
Fire Department has moved over 152 COVID positive patients, and the COVID units accounted for 105 of those transports. for 70% of those transports, leaving our ambulances to deal with their day-to-day operation.
What about testing of firefighters? Have we maybe just run down status? How many positives have we had from GFD, and where are we, if anywhere, with testing the rank and file in the department?
Yes, so currently we tested 82 firefighters based on exposure. So exposure is defined as being in the proximity of a contamination without the proper PPE or any part thereof. So whenever there's a gap, or whenever there's when something goes wrong with maybe not wearing the appropriate PPEs or wearing your PPEs late, then we do an exposure report. And so when it's deemed that these firefighters have a medium to high risk, then we test them. So we tested a total of 82 firefighters and dispatchers referenced relative to work exposures, and we have 0 infections. The only positive we had was the dispatcher with household contact of a family member.
And this is the one over the weekend, right, Kevin? Right. Where are we with the dispatch and E911? Are they reopened? Is everybody back, or are they still in Agana?
No, definitely. What happened was because of our exposure with a family member at home, the dispatcher was exposed from family contact. We took the necessary precautions. When she tested, she had been tested positive. We made sure that our dispatchers were removed from the thing. We set up our alternate site, which is something that we do all the time when it comes to typhoons, when it comes to issues with the building or any incidents. We can switch over. We had the lines transferred, so there's no disruption in service. The calls keep coming in for 911. The dispatching keeps happening for all our emergencies. And then, as I said, Chief Chaco sent up the decontamination team. We made sure we thoroughly cleaned it using approved CDC chemicals to clean all the work surfaces, walls, the entire workspace, to include the Guam Police Department, who also shares the room with us. So when they're doing the decon, we had them transfer to our HQ, set up shop here, transfer over with no disruption. When that was complete, they were free to go back to their workspace, transferred it back, and we were fine.
Okay. And I'm sorry.
So currently, yes, we are back at the 911 center.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What about status of overtime? What's the deal with the overtime? I mean, is there an issue? How far back are we in paying the rank and file the department?
Who are you talking to?
Whoever can answer.
I'm sorry, I'll what was the question again?
Kev, where are we with the status of overtime paid to the firefighters in the department? Are we behind? Are we current?
He didn't hear the question.
Are we overtime?
Yeah.
So we are just our personnel are coming in as far as RDO cancels because of lack of manpower. We're not experiencing a significant increase because we have not had any positive cases out on the field. So we're maintaining status quo as far as that's concerned.
You know, when you talk about not getting any positives out in the field, do you think that's kind of testament to the protective measures that the Guam Fire Department is, mandating its firefighters use?
It's definitely 100%. Like Chief Chaco was saying, as an infection control specialist, he's making sure he goes on virtually every COVID positive run, make sure that the donning and doffing is correct at the PPE, make sure that everybody's wearing their PPE. At the stations, we have the sanitizing stations outside the doorways. We have the hand sanitizer. Personnel are wearing masks while on duty. So yes, absolutely, we are doing our best to make sure that we do not contribute to the spread and keep our personnel safe. Throughout this COVID, since the start of this COVID response, we have had to make sure that our personnel are healthy. These guys are, essential to continuing this operation well into the future. We need to sustain them.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, Chief Chaco, if you could just take us through, what a day is like for you when you are out there on the front lines responding to these reports, these calls.
Okay. First of all, I think uh, the firefighters deserve recognition because it was their early buy-in. It was their understanding the gravity of the situation. That is really the reason why we're infection free regarding exposure. So these guys, the firefighters, have been we are heavily engaged, as you can see with our numbers, and our firefighters continue to be poised to fight. And I give I want to acknowledge our firefighters because it's them, it's their actions that keep us safe. But let me just run you through, let's say a normal call, right? So a call goes into dispatch, and so we develop what is called public service answering points, or the 911 questionnaire. So in addition to the chief complaint, the dispatchers ask questions to try to ascertain if it is a PUI or surveillance case. If it is deemed a PUI, then the units are alerted and they're told to elevate their PPEs, get into the proper equipment. Our medics, when they receive the information, they're taught to have a standardized, methodical approach to these PUIs. So they slow things down, and they get their mind right, and then they get into the proper PPEs. When they get into the proper PPEs, when they arrive at the scene, the first thing they try to do is they try to see if the patient can be brought outside. Fresh air, fresh air, fresh air. That's the motto for our firefighters, right? So if they're brought outside, we maintain a 6 feet distance and we try to make our assessment. And if we have to break that 6 feet bubble, we break it for whatever time is required, and then we move back. We smartly place masks on patients. We have them turn away as we're making our assessments. We approach from the back as we're putting on the mask. And they're when, let's say they have to enter the house now. They enter the house. They're looking at stuff, things like the air conditioning unit. Where is it blowing to? The fans, any additional personnel or people that may be in the house. Then once we mitigate it by either turning off the AC units, removing people from the house, then we treat any immediate threats to life. And once we treat those life-threatening injury or illnesses, we move them out of the house and we make our assessment outside the house. So it's the attention to detail that these guys have that has been a reason for success. Right. So we transport our patients to the hospital, and then we have our decon team waiting for them there. The decon team has 2 people assigned to it. One person's primary role is to ensure that they clean, disinfect the ambulance, and make the unit ready for service. And the other person's responsibility is to ensure that there's proper removal of the PPEs and that it's exposed in an appropriate manner. And so by doing this, we bring our units back to service a lot quicker than our past practices.
Chief, how do you, because what we've seen as we wind into like 7-8 months under these conditions, collectively, the community lets the guard down. So how do you kind of instill in your guys, obviously it's training, it's the protocols and stuff, but do you ever have those moments where you got to be like, hey guys, no, we got to keep on because you're right, we're getting zeros and ones and all that stuff, and I think people kind of let their guard down. So how do you kind of communicate that to your guys?
I think it's the constant updates, and I believe that I believe that while at work we have such a heightened level of awareness. We make sure we keep our distancing, and I caution our guys that when we're off duty is when we're probably going to be the most susceptible. And so, although we can't dictate and we can't direct them, to do certain off-duty activities, we just remind them that, hey, if it's a high risk event, or if it's there's more than an X amount of people in the house and they're not in the same household, then refrain from doing things like that. But I want to say that our first positive for any of our firefighters is likely going to be from a household contact, and not in relations to our normal duties at work.
Right, you say that, but have you ever, and maybe even you, Kevin, Have you gotten it from maybe your children or your spouses who've said, Daddy, please, I'm scared for you, don't go to work or anything like that? And how do you deal with that? And I ask this because, we just saw a frontliner, a nurse at the Guam Memorial Hospital pass away. And I just want people to realize that every day that you guys go to work, every day that a police officer goes to work, that you're putting your lives at risk and your family's lives at risk.
We trust the process. We trust in our PPs. We constantly train so that there are no gaps in what we do. The best way we can protect ourselves is through our personal protective equipment, to social distancing, to hand hygiene, and we just have to trust our equipment. And based on our current numbers, it works. We've also implemented policies in place to protect our family. We have this, we relaxed our uniform policies so that firefighters report in civilian attire when they come into work, and they secure and shower in civilian attire before they go home, so as not to track this infectious virus home. So we have measures in place to protect our firefighters. And honestly, as we started seeing, because we're starting to see household contact. We have 4 firefighters who are quarantined because of household contact with family members who have tested positive, and now it's hit home because it's a family member. So now we have that extra caution, we have that heightened sense where we make sure that we distance ourselves at work as well, and we make sure that we follow the prescribed practices and protocols.
Tev?
Yeah, Sabria, I know where you're getting at. Every day, like you said, whether it's COVID or just regular work, our guys put their lives on the line every day. It sounds so cliche, but it's very true. And when pandemics or certain circumstances come up like that, it really shows. But it also shows our training of our guys. It shows our commitment to the department. It shows our commitment to the island. It shows that they're willing to take on, I'm not going to say extra risk. They're willing to take on extra responsibility to stay safe. They're risking to, they're taking risks, but also adding on the responsibility of keeping their family safe and keeping them safe. We all have, families here. Our guys continue to show up to work, not because they have to, not because, they're mandated to, but because they want to. And with their proper PPE selection, with their training, they know that they're going to go home safe, or at least that's, the expectation.
All right.
And of course, I know the family members understand that when they took on this job,
Right.
certain aspects of this job are dangerous, inherently dangerous. Whether we have COVID or not, these guys every day are, I would like to say we're not adding risk to it. We're adding more responsibility.
Okay, have you guys had to rescue any more knucklehead military hikers during this lockdown or what?
We always encourage people to enjoy Guam. I said it a million times. We encourage you to get out there, see Guam, see how beautiful it is. Everybody talks about Facebook's how beautiful our island is and how wonderful it is to go hiking. The weather is great, but be safe. That's what we're asking.
How do you get lost at Mount Lam, guys? I mean, damn, there's a freaking trail, dude. Hell. And these guys come here like, we've hiked Mount Everest. I've scaled the Himalayan peaks.
A perfect point. I don't know who the group is that went out there and placed the signs and the new ribbons, but the Guam Fire Department, in conjunction with the United States Coast Guard, the command center there, because we deal with them on a regular basis when it comes to search and rescue, even if it's land or sea. So we actually went down to Pagat Caves and observed the markings, and the markings are very nice. Whoever that group is that did it, kudos to you. There's signs pointing to the cave. There's signs that point to the cliffside, the coast, along the route. There's new surveyor's tape on the trees, making it very difficult to get lost. However, there is that chance, especially in the evening
However,
time.
they still find a way.
You know, we're human. So
Yeah,
we
because they're
will.
American, eh? And they think
It's the beer.
easy. The beer.
All right, Chief Chaco.
No,
we'll
let's
give you-
keep talking about the military hikers.
Yeah, you
Were
want
they
to.
were they hashers
We're
or
gonna
what?
have Manoni on tomorrow, the
All
Ever
right.
Admiral.
Okay.
So, Chief Chaco, any final message you'd like to give out to the community?
I guess just everything that's being pushed out. We know that when you look at the numbers, right, and the ratio, I know that there's a lot of factors that play into it, right. But when we had 42 out of 1,000, and then you have 80 out of 800, when you break that down into ratio, that would mean that 1 in 10 people that you encounter are positive. So I know there's variables like contact tracing and home quarantine. But really, I think to stop the spread is we need to do our part as a community. We need to hold this virus at bay by not having a host available to them. Our firefighters, they're poised, but we've been at this for several months, and so I've tasked the supervisors to look at their emotional wellness and the physical wellness of our firefighters, because we've never been through this before. And I really just want to foot stomp and thank our firefighters for their continued diligence and their vigilance in what they do to keep the community safe. And we'll be here throughout this pandemic.
Kev?
Yeah, so I got a couple shout outs I would like to do also. As Chief Chaco stated, at the onset of this, we initiated 2 COVID units. In order to put these additional units at the station, we had to upgrade our decon area at those stations to specifically for these gentlemen and women of our fire department that were conducting these transports. With the assistance, of course, of Homeland Security, BSP, the administration, and Red Horse Squadron, who's still actually doing construction work to make sure that our guys have the proper areas and decon areas. Chief Chaco has been out there day in and day out, just making sure that our guys are safe. Chief Stone has been, leading us in a great direction. And, of course, I would like to especially, express my thanks to our firefighters out on the field. Those guys are top notch. They know what they're doing. They're the best at what they do. And as Chief Chaco mentioned, we need to support them and make sure we support them in the long run also.
All right, thanks
guys.
Kevin, Chief Chaco. Be safe out there.
Absolutely.
All right. So,
Take care. Stay safe, Bob.
right on. Wash your hands. 9:47. We'll take a short break and we'll come back and close out the show.